A victory that cost more than it gave. The world called it a win. Headlines praised the outcome. Analysts applauded the strategy. From the outside, it looked like a decisive triumph, the kind that defines a career and cements a legacy. But beneath the celebration, something vital had been traded away, quietly and permanently. Not all victories are equal. Some expand power, others shrink it, and the most dangerous kind are the ones that succeed exactly as planned, while eroding something no report ever measures. In a time when winning is everything, this story matters because it reveals what victory can take when no one is paying attention. The billionaire at the center of this moment had just secured the deal of a lifetime. Years of negotiation had led to this point. Rivals were outmaneuvered. Terms were favorable. Control, on paper, remained intact. The market responded instantly, rewarding the company with soaring confidence. Applause followed. Validation arrived. But the reveal began almost immediately. The victory came with conditions, oversight requirements, integration commitments, performance benchmarks designed to protect all parties involved. None of them seemed unreasonable. In fact, they were praised as responsible governance. The billionaire accepted them without hesitation, confident they could navigate any constraint. After all, this was a win. At first, the impact felt minimal. Reporting obligations increased slightly. Coordination meetings multiplied. Nothing dramatic, nothing alarming. The company continued to perform. The billionaire continued to lead. From the outside, nothing had changed. But internally, the texture of decision-making began to shift. The victory introduced new stakeholders, partners with veto power disguised as collaboration, advisors whose approval was now required for moves once made instinctively, processes that slowed action just enough to feel deliberate rather than bold. The billionaire noticed the friction, but dismissed it as the cost of scale. The reveal sharpened when a strategic initiative was quietly revised during integration review. The core goal remained, but the execution was softened, risk trimmed, ambition narrowed. The justification was simple: alignment with the new agreement. The billionaire approved the changes, telling themselves it was temporary. One compromise to secure a bigger prize, then another, and another. Each one made sense in isolation. Each one protected the victory. But together, they began to reshape what the victory actually meant. The deal had been won, but the freedom to act had been partially exchanged for certainty. The billionaire didn't feel weaker. Not yet. They felt responsible, measured, mature. And that was the danger, because the most costly victories are not the ones that fail. They're the ones that succeed while quietly redefining what power is allowed to do. The first price had already been paid. The rest would reveal itself soon. The cost unfolded gradually, disguised as cooperation. Meetings expanded, committees formed. Alignment became the new currency of progress. Every step forward required consensus. Every deviation required justification. The billionaire adapted, confident that influence could still steer outcomes within these new boundaries. The reveal deepened when execution began to slow. Timelines stretched. Opportunities that once moved in weeks now took months. No one resisted openly. Everyone was polite, professional, committed to process. The system worked, just not at the speed the billionaire was accustomed to. What felt like stability was actually constraint. The conflict sharpened during a high-stakes expansion proposal. The data supported it. The market window was clear. The team was ready. But during review, the proposal was reframed. Risks were amplified. Scenarios multiplied. The final recommendation was cautious entry, not decisive leadership. The billionaire agreed, believing restraint was wise under the new partnership. The market did not wait. A competitor moved faster. Claimed ground, shaped perception. By the time the company entered, it was welcomed, but not followed. The victory had secured access, but not momentum. The billionaire felt the sting, subtle but unmistakable. Internally, leadership tone shifted. Executives spoke more carefully. Innovation proposals were crafted to survive, review, rather than challenge assumptions. Bold ideas softened themselves before reaching decision makers. The culture began to prioritize safety over imagination, compliance over courage. The billionaire noticed a change but struggled to pinpoint its source. After all, the company was performing. Profits were strong. The deal continued to be praised publicly. Questioning its impact felt ungrateful, even irrational. But doubt crept in during moments of silence. Late nights reviewing initiatives that once would have been thrilling now felt sterile. The billionaire sensed that something essential was slipping away. Not influence, not status, but the ability to surprise the market, to lead rather than respond. The victory had created expectations, and expectations had become boundaries. The conflict reached a quiet turning point when an advisor admitted privately what no one would say aloud. The company could no longer move faster than its partners. The agreement that secured the win now defined the ceiling of action. Breaking free would require renegotiation, confrontation, or sacrifice, none of which aligned with the image of success the victory demanded. The billionaire felt trapped between perception and reality. To admit the cost would tarnish the win. To ignore it would continue to drain the very advantage the deal was meant to create. The victory was intact, but its price was rising, and the billionaire could feel it accumulating. Decision by decision, compromise by compromise, toward a moment that would force a reckoning. The conflict emerged fully when the billionaire realized a victory had shifted who truly set the tempo. The empire still moved forward, but no longer on instinct. It moved on permission, on alignment, on comfort levels negotiated far from the edge where breakthroughs are born. The difference was subtle, but devastating to someone who understood how power actually works. The breaking tension surfaced during a moment that should have been decisive. A disruptive technology appeared, early, fragile, and proven, the kind of opportunity that rewards those willing to move before certainty arrives. The billionaire recognized it instantly. This was the moment victories are meant to enable, but the structure created by the win pushed back. Partners demanded extended validation. Committees requested third-party audits. Risk teams expanded worst-case scenarios until momentum evaporated. Every safeguard was logical, every objection reasonable. Together, they formed a wall no vision could climb quickly enough. By the time approval arrived, the technology had matured and been claimed elsewhere. That loss didn't break the company. It wounded something deeper. The realization that the victory had inverted the relationship between power and possibility. The deal that promised dominance now required consensus before daring. The empire was no longer built to surprise the future. Inside leadership meetings, fear disguised itself as discipline. Executives learned which ideas survived review and which died quietly. Innovation adapted to the shape of approval rather than the shape of opportunity. The billionaire watched creativity flatten into predictability. Emotionally, the toll became undeniable. The billionaire felt responsible for every misleap. The win was theirs. The constraints were theirs. And yet, reversing course would require admitting what no successful leader wants to admit, that the triumph itself had been misjudged. The conflict reached its emotional peak during a private conversation with a longtime ally, someone who had been there before the deal, before the celebration. They spoke carefully but honestly. "You won the battle," they said, "but you traded the right to choose the next one." The words settled heavily. Because they were true, the victory had locked the company into a version of success defined by others. Stability over speed, protection over possibility. The empire could no longer outrun its agreements. The billionaire stood at the edge of an uncomfortable truth. Victories can create cages, and the stronger the win, the harder it is to see the bars. The next decision would not be about growth or profit. It would be about whether the billionaire was willing to confront the real cost of winning and decide what mattered more, preserving the victory or reclaiming the freedom it quietly consumed. The climax arrived when the billionaire chose to stop protecting the victory. In a closed-door meeting that carried more weight than any press conference, they acknowledged what had been avoided since the deal was signed. The win had delivered security, scale, and approval, but had also narrowed the future. And a future constrained by comfort was not the future they set out to build. The decision that followed shocked everyone involved. The billionaire initiated renegotiation, not quietly, not cautiously, but clearly. They challenged the clauses that slowed action, questioned the oversight that diluted vision, and demanded the freedom to move at the pace of opportunity rather than permission. Partners resisted immediately. Advisors warned of backlash. Analysts predicted instability. The world expected the billionaire to protect the win at all costs. But the billionaire understood something deeper. A victory that cannot be used is not power. It is decoration. The negotiations were tense. Some concessions were refused. Others were clawed back at significant cost. Certain partnerships dissolved. Short-term certainty evaporated. The stock wavered. Headlines shifted from praise to confusion. But beneath the turbulence, something vital returned. Speed. Decisions regained edge. Ideas resurfaced unfiltered. The company began moving again, not recklessly, but freely. Not everything worked. Not every move succeeded. But momentum returned, and with it, the ability to shape rather than follow. The resolution unfolded unevenly but honestly. The company emerged smaller in some areas, stronger in others. The victory was no longer pristine, no longer universally admired, but it was real. It belonged to the people using it, not the structures preserving it. The billionaire stood back and took stock. Winning had taught them a lesson no loss ever could. That power is not measured by what you secure. It is measured by what you're still allowed to do afterward. And sometimes, the bravest move isn't to chase the next victory. It's to question the last one. Subscribe to join the journey. A victory